Title and thumbnail should hint at it. Hi, my name is Morphsuit America. This video is to talk about my experience when I played on the BETA Global NGS. Now, I can wrap it up in the intro. Depending on what you want to see later in this video, there will be time skips, timestamps in the description. So, pretty much, when it comes to this, it's a giant plus. A lot of good things. I only have a few gripes here and there because of personal opinions and experience with PSO2 and seeing some of the stuff that I would want to at least point out and address. But that's just my perspective, my opinion, my things I want to address. But overall, it's a good thing. It's friendly for returning players. It's friendly for new players. I'm kind of worried about certain things, but I'll state that later in this video. So all in all, had fun playing the yeah, this is a stream. So if you want to see the original stream of this, you can look in the description for that. But I had fun playing on the global beta PSO2. And you might be wondering, why am I playing on the global instead of Japan? Well, one, Japanese beta didn't really give me an invite. Secondly, when it comes to me doing this, it kind of falls back onto my certain philosophy about being in the moment. And if I did skip this, I would miss the opportunity, chance, and experience of playing in the beta. Because there might be some things that will change upon its release compared to what we saw in the beta, and doing this, and this. So, I want to see the beta. I would want to be in that moment. So, I didn't want to miss that opportunity. Have to give a shout out to the Ship 2 group, Void, team leader Jin, and also Blac, blah blah. I can't even say his name properly, or his username, his YouTube name. Blac to Basics. Their channel's in the description. But yeah, because of those two, like, you know, peer pressuring me and the team too, it's like, okay, yeah, I might as well. So I got in there, enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I saw some things that I'm a bit concerned about, but I feel like they will address it. I don't know. We shall see upon the NGS release, and I'll be streaming that a good chunk. And also to address the popular question some of my fans, viewers, members ask, what version of the game am I going to be playing on? It's going to be Japan. Why Japan? Because that account is fucking old. It has a lot of the stuff that I don't have over there in global. And not only that, that account has a lot of value, especially in terms of how much love and stuff that I placed with my characters. I want to see almost all my characters in NGS, and most likely I'll do that. However, I'll address that later point when it comes to a bit of my concerns about how they did things that I saw in the beta that might be an issue upon its release and maybe later on. But anyways, when it comes to the certain points I'm going to talk about, once again, look in the description for the time skip. So, character creation. It's pretty straightforward. It's similar to that of PSO2. The only thing that might be different is the overhaul. And I don't think I have a lot to say about it other than they added more animations to it. They have a lot of NGS features, new Genesis things that you would want to try to go for. And then the third one is the face variation. So let me talk about the first one, which was animations. So yeah, they have different running, walking, jumping sort of animations. And I'm a bit worried about this, and I'll address this I'll address this at the end. But it's a plus to have different animations, but I'm worried about the other thing that Sega might end up doing, or whoever's running this game might do, because of all these new gimmicks. Obviously, it's gonna be cash money sort of thing, but once again, I'll talk about that in the later point. Second point is NGS stuff. So apparently, a lot of the stuff that we had in base PSO2 now has an NGS stuff. It's either gonna be similar to that of the PSO2, or it's gonna be different. I'm a bit curious about the new Genesis voices. You can still use your old PSO2 voice, but there's gonna be new Genesis voices. There's gonna be new Genesis hair, new Genesis eyelashes, eyebrows, a lot of the cosmetics, outfits, and stuff. There are gonna be new Genesis. Now, are they gonna revive some of the stuff that was from base PSO2 into new Genesis? I think only a few, not all. We shall see how Sega does stuff, or once again, whoever released stuff does whatever. But yeah, that's another thing to know. And then the third one was face variations. Now, face variations, that one, I'm going to go a bit further into the stream where I made my female character I'm gonna just address this, which kind of bothers me. There's only 2 face variants. I'm hoping that they add more to it, but I'm hoping that they don't add more to it by forcing you to do something. Because, like, there's only 2 for at least both of the certain genders. There's 2 for the males, 2 for the females, but you can use them, I think you can use them despite whatever sex you are. But that's the big thing that I wasn't a big fan of. The fact that there's only 2. In base PSO2, there's like 4 of them, 5 of them. But for New Genesis, there's only 2. And I have a bit of an issue because both of the face variations are like anime heavy. And my characters, well, my 2 particular characters that I'm certain about, Sherelle and Zillion, they don't use the anime face variation. They actually use like the adult sort of, it's like kind of anime but like kind of realistic sort of face. It's like the second one, well, it's not like the baby face one, it's more of the one that's kind of like an adult one. Yeah, it's gonna be hard for me to replicate that for NGS, granted that it has, like, I'm trying to get that certain look. But the big thing is when it comes to like you working on any sort of character, especially in terms of their face, you're gonna need a lot of other things. It's not just like getting the right proportions and the right aspects and all that. You actually need to get the cosmetics, the eyelashes, the right eyebrows, the pupils. So there's a number of things you gotta toy around with, and with this, it didn't really give me as much because obviously it's limited. It's beta. If I had my original characters, or if I had the stuff that I've been stocking up on and all the things I can toy around with, it might be a bit better. But I didn't have that because this is my global account, and with the beta testing, they're forcing you to use what is it? Like just start over for that New Genesis testing. So that was a bit of a issue with me, but it might change because I do have some stuff on my Japanese account that could translate well to NGS, and I do have stuff that is NGS related that can be used in NGS. So we'll see how that toys out. I'll readdress this in a separate video. I might go a bit more into the cosmetic side of things since I haven't really done that other than like talking about one of my characters and their fashion set in base PSO2. I'll do that for New Genesis most likely. But yeah, pretty much character customization is straightforward. Let me talk about the... what is it? When you start getting into the game. Now, I had to reconfigure a lot of stuff. Hopefully, I don't need to do that when I get into New Genesis. Now, the one thing that I noticed is that... well, I'm going to talk about this Cocoon later, but for this character, they had to go through here so they can... 1, do the tutorial, then 2, to actually get into the process of understanding why you had to do this in the technical sense. But the flip side to me doing that is if you make a new character, they would have to do that again. This is something to note because do you really want to do this for all your characters? And then this might also be a con to having multiple characters in New Genesis. Now, in terms of something of that video, I'm gonna have to, once again, play New Genesis a lot to figure out the pros and cons of that. There might be a video for that later. But the big problem is, if this is a thing, this is gonna give me some issues because it's gonna remind me of old PSO2, especially back in Japanese PSO2. Actually, Southeast Asia had to deal with it as well. Episode 1, 2, and 3. Every time you made a new character, they had to do everything. They had to unlock everything. Actually, in episode 4, it was also a thing as well. So, if I had to bring all my characters over to NGS, and they have to go through the tutorial, and through all these different cocoons, I'm gonna have a problem. Because, well, I mean, granted that there might not be a lot of content, and I might need to do it, but, that might be an issue because it's just repeating a lot. And not only that, this is a very familiar pattern because base PSO2 back in the days did this. If they can account lock it and make sure that, you know, you can get through all of it, that would be great. But this might be a slight issue if they don't do account lock methods. And what do I mean by account lock? Pretty much if your one character does something and you have multiple characters on that account, it is locked. It is registered that you already done this. It's like how you account lock cosmetic items, lobby actions, and all that. Pretty much, hopefully they do the same sort of sense in terms of your missions and whatnot. But then again, it depends on how they program it and how they execute it and all that. But yeah, that's the one issue that I'm gonna have. So in this Cocoon, it's pretty much teaching you the basics, telling you the different animations, the running animations, jumping animations, all that jazz. Now, the big thing that I have a bit of a problem with is the wall kicking. Other than that, everything else is okay. The running animation is actually a huge plus side, but the wall climbing is a problem because you can only do it twice. After you kick off the wall twice, that is it. You gotta be struggling. You either had to touch the floor again, and then run again, and then jump again, and then do another two wall climb. What is it? It's not continuous. It's not smooth. And that might be a problem because if you see a giant mountain you want to try to just climb, you can't really climb it. You will have to jump off of it, but not only that, you would have to do it in a strategical way where you're gonna have to find placements so you can pause, rest, and then try to do it all over again. Now, this Cocoon also brings up Photon Blast, which is pretty much like your complex photon actions back in the Japanese PSO2. It's something you would want to charge up, and then you release it, it's a special action move. Oh. Now, the animations for these actions and whatnot, it's great. They did take out Just Attacks. Just Attacks, I wasn't a big fan of them because most of the MMORPG games that I played, they didn't force you to do some sort of rhythm game. And if you think about it, in a sense, in terms of fighting, in an actual fight, do you really need to have a sort of rhythm? That depends, but like, if I'm shooting a gun, I'd rather shoot my gun. And the fact that you could do a lot of attacks without having to worry about that little gimmick, that's a plus. But some people may disagree because they liked it. Let me know in the comments. But they did take out Just Attacks. It's different. A lot of the classes that are in-game are very familiar because they're kind of playing off of the stuff that we already know about in base PSO2. It's just that most of these classes are just upgraded to a Scion successor class where there's a lot more to their photon actions and a lot more to their gimmicks compared to what the base had. Now, I can go into a long spiel about this, but I'll let you guys look in the description for a time skip. The summary of this is pretty much the things that they've done for the classes. It's very familiar, especially if you played on base PSO2. It's just that it's at an upgraded Scion version. That's just a plus. However, this is where I'm going to go into my opinions, and this is just going back into like the things that I've seen and what I have a bit of an issue with. Now, this is just an issue because I'm a vet and I've heard a lot of people talk about all these different builds and seen a lot of issues that Sega really hasn't addressed when it comes to these upgrades. Now, this can't be said for those who played on Global because, once again, you only played it for a year. If you played on Southeast Asia or even on the Japanese side, you'll understand some of the stuff. And even though they addressed some of the things, it wasn't really fleshed out to the point where like they could be on the same level as Scion successors. And the big problem was, especially on base PSO2, a lot of the Scions and successor classes, they're just good compared to that of some of the base stuff. And you wouldn't really see an OG combo like Fighter Hunter as much. You'll see maybe Fighter a Twal, Hunter a Twal. You'll see something with a Twal or some Scion class as a main and or sub. And that kind of took away the originality of some of these OG classes like Force Techer or just playing as a Force main because there's Phantom. Phantom just allows you to charge your stuff faster. So, or having Force Phantom. It's so many things that they didn't really address, and it's just that all these Scion successor classes overpowered it. And my question was, why didn't they do this sort of upgrade over in base PSO2? It would have been nice to actually play with some new things compared to seeing recycled stuff. Now, don't get me wrong. This has pros and cons to it. The big pro to this is that if any returning player decides to go back into PSO2NGS, they would be very familiar with some of these things, and with their knowledge, they'll be able to still play some of the classes that they used to main, or at least try to main in, and it might be smooth for them to get into this and also master some of the classes that they didn't do in PSO2. But once again, the main gripe that I have is that why they're recycling, why they're backtracking. I don't... This is going to go to my later philosophy I'll address in the end of this video, but that's the main problem I have. It's not that it's, you know... It's not that the change is a problem. It's just that why didn't they do this in the past? And it could be because of coding and all that, but at the same time, there's so much downtime. Like, Global can't really vouch for this, but in Japan, there's a lot of downtime between, like, giant updates. And during that time, they could have addressed some of the things that need to be addressed. They did do it in due time, but once again, it didn't fix some of the core issues that some classes have, especially like Fighter, for example. From what I heard from a lot of Fighter mains. So, that is pretty much it for that. Let me talk about the levels. The levels, this may be a big, smallish, I don't know. Because here's the thing. In original PSO2, you could actually be like 20 levels below something and you can still beat its ass. Over here, you can't really do that anymore because you have to actually be within its level parameter. You have to be at least 5 levels below its actual level to do any sort of damage. If you don't fulfill that requirement, you're not going to do any damage whatsoever. So if you're level 1 versus the level 10, you're not going to do jack shit. Now, once again, base PS2, you could actually do something about that. You can literally be level 1 and you can beat up stuff that's at level 20. You would need to know the skill. You would need to have the skills. You would need to know your stuff to actually make sure you don't die while fighting against a high level enemy. But that was the thing over in the base PSO2. But for New Genesis, you have to abide by this rule. Now, it may not be a big issue because it still will be a challenge, and it's not going to be like a huge damper in terms of the scale difficulty, especially if you were like level 5 versus the level 10. But it's just something that I'm like, why did they kind of take that away? Because it was a bit of a challenge for me to actually just go back and do some of the old stuff and see if I can actually beat up some high level things. Once again, might not be a big issue, but that's something that I noticed. Okay, so looking at what I'm doing on the screen right now, it's pretty much me going through the tutorial, me going through client orders. Now, the big thing is, are they going to flesh out the tutorial a bit more and give a lot more details about certain things? Because a lot of the things that you might want to know about, you would need to actually get these client orders. And the question is, are people going to really go out of the way to get them? Now, it depends. Once they understand the basics, or if they hear from a video, or just if they see a video, or if they hear from like fellow mates, fellow party members and whatnot, teammates, friends, they might be able to catch on quickly. But that's the thing. Naturally, from the game itself, unless you decide to go out of your way to get all these important client orders, you may skip over some important things that teach you a good chunk of the game. Now, I feel like, especially since later on, when I level up this character a bit more, I was able to see a lot more explanations with various core mechanics that you would need to know from these client orders. But once again, it's not a mandatory thing. And I would say that it would be nice for it to be a mandatory thing instead of just like an optional thing, because it is important to note how you will want to fight against certain enemies, and you don't want to spend hours fighting a particular enemy when there was a certain gimmick that you had to be aware of and it was explained in game. But you just skipped over it because you didn't go for that client order, or that quest. Requests. What am I supposed to call these now? I don't feel like calling them client orders anymore. I might just call them quests or stuff that you pick up from NPCs. But anyways, that's one little gimmick that I kind of was like, they might want to rework that. But that's just my 2 cents in my opinion. In terms of the exploration, it's fun. Like, it's not locked. The problem that I had with base PSO2 is that it didn't really give you the sense of open world. Yes, you could technically go into camp. I mean, you can start up a quest, you can go on the planet service, and then you're in the open world, but at the same time, it was still limited because you could see there's a map that was boxed in and it had certain patterns, and you weren't really out of the damn box, and you're not really actually exploring the world. This allows you to do that. Now, in terms of why they did that sort of format with the different map sections and all that, I feel like it just sticked with some of the stuff that I had with the past Phantasy Star. With New Genesis, obviously, it's just going to be different. There's a bunch of different elevations. There's going to be like different environments. It's open world. It's going to be a huge plus. And then you can just get lost in it to see a night and day cycle. That's just like everything that I wanted in terms of fantasy and just like an open world. And I think that's what kind of pushed some people away from the game. One of my roommates, my old roommate, he wanted an open world game more than what he saw in PSO2. It was fine, he was okay with it, but it didn't really, you know, push that sort of fantasy drive. But what else can I talk about? So I talked about levels, I talked about the things. Let me talk about Coccoons, because I did show that, but I didn't go into details about it. Now, the one thing that I have with Coccoons are like a simulation, which is supposed to help you understand a bit more about what's going on in the world, or at least get you started and all that. This is how you get your skill points. Now, I feel like there's only a few games that I played where it forced you to go into a certain quest and you get skill points. Most MMORPG games that I played, the logic is if you level up, you get a skill point. With this, it's different. I can't remember a game that did something like that. Unless I'm just being dumb and I can't remember the exact mechanics of these various games, but this was different from what I'm used to. And this might be a problem, especially if I had to do this on multiple characters almost all the time. If they don't account lock it. So if I have another character, let's say I'm using this character and I'm doing it, then I bring a different character, and like to get their skill point, I would need to do this. It's gonna be a lot of repetitions, and it's gonna be annoying fast. I have a tolerance to it because I've done it in the past, but I don't want to revisit it again because I'd rather go forward than backwards. So, Coccoons, yeah, once again, this is how you get your skill points. You would need to actually complete them. You can get a bit of other items if you complete the side missions on the left-hand side. But, yeah, it's like, how is this going to be executed? Because I don't mind doing it, but at the same time, I don't know how I honestly, like, I would most likely bitch and complain if I had to do this multiple times on, like, 22 characters. So that's something I'm kind of worried about. They might have already fixed it. They might have account locked it. I don't know. We shall see upon NGS release. But it's a bit weird to not actually get skill points from just leveling. You have to do these simulations to get it. And the question is, how many simulations are there? And are they going to be account locked? Other than that, it's a bit different, so I will have to give it points for that, just not following the usual trend. What else I want to talk about? Oh, bosses. So, apparently, these bosses are gonna be different, because there's a veteran type. Apparently, from what people told me when I was streaming this, a veteran type is something that you would want a lot more people. Oh yeah, so over here, this kind of demonstrates my point about, like, client orders. Because if you don't pick up all these different client orders, you might skip over some small, helpful information. And the one that kind of caught my attention was how this one guy was fighting against this certain veteran boss, but they weren't really doing any damage. And could I click with them that they needed to do something because they weren't doing as much damage and they were within the parameters. And I'll show that certain fight. If I can find it. Okay, so this fight. So, this thing is a level 10. It's not a veteran, so it's not that bad. But it's a level 10. You can see the element weakness is weak to light. Apparently it got a shift buff. It does show the aggro sign if you get the aggro. But as you can see, we're not doing as much damage. And I am technically level 7, so I should be doing some damage to it. If you didn't read the client order, it explains to you that there's a shield gimmick. If you're not doing as much damage, you need to look on its body to find this like yellow attachment on it. And you want to damage that yellow attachment, destroy it so you can actually do your true damage. Before I started to help this guy, he was just punching it. I don't know if he knew about it or maybe his class, especially since he was playing fighter with fist weapons. It may not be ideal to use those against that maybe, but the thing is he wasn't really targeting it, so I was like, oh, okay, so I need to destroy that because we're not doing any damage whatsoever unless that is destroyed. This also kind of shows like battle experience and just people being able to adapt. If I was fighting that thing, is he a fighter? It looks like he's a fighter. If I was fighting that thing, I would have tried to focus down on that. I would have adapted. But yeah. But I don't know, it just depends. So, I was shooting at it and was trying to destroy it. It takes a while to destroy the damn thing. It got to the point where I aggroed him. I think it shows that. Okay, I think it's that icon there. The eye icon. Where it says you're aggroed. Like he's aggroed onto you. And that's what happened. I think we destroyed it too. Yeah, so once we destroy it, you can actually do damage to it. But obviously, since I didn't have the best equipment, I wasn't doing as much. Oh yeah, another thing to address. When it comes to my the buttons, it's actually 3-click. There's no 2-click anymore. You got rid of it. 3-click. So I had to adjust to my 3-click button. So let me talk about the veteran type. Now, if you see veteran in front of its name, it's something that you don't want to try to solo. You can if you want to, but it's going to take a good chunk of time. And when it comes to these veteran types, like it's ideal to have a lot more people with you to actually beat the shit out of it. I think 32 is the max. But I was just fighting against it. I was toying around with rifle. And pretty much rifle reminds me heavily on like Phantom. Just upgraded as a ranger, Scion. What else? There's only a few weapons, so launcher wasn't implemented into the beta. And there's a lot of gimmicks that they did kill off in base PSO2 that they're kind of reviving. The fact that you could do multiple... Well, it's like a multi-class sort of thing to your weapons and allowing you to just toy around with all these different class combinations and having perks and benefits and whatnot. That's just a plus side. It's good to see all these different class combinations again, like Hunter, well, weird ones compared to like what it was in base PS2, like Hunter, Tekker, Fighter, Tekker, like all these different combinations that are like just new. And it gives a lot more flexibility to that. What else did I toy around with in here? I was just playing around with all the different classes, getting used to them. Maybe a female character. Oh yeah, I was trying out Gunner, so I think that's what I wanted to cover in this video. But all in all, had a blast playing it. I'm trying to remember. Oh, the one thing I do need to talk about. Cancel animations. So you can get out of a couple of the animations, but it's not all of them. And some of them you would definitely want to get out of just because if you're in combat and you can evade it, you would want to evade it. But you can't do that if you're stuck in that animation and you don't have iframes with that. So I don't know if Sega's gonna address that or to get changed out, or we're gonna have to stick with whatever we got. It's something that I'm gonna have to try to get out of if they don't do a lot of cancel animations. Wildlife, okay. You beat up the wildlife so you can get meat and stuff. Some of the I don't know if they actually add fishing in here. Haven't experimented with that. A lot of the mates that you can get is on the field now. You got your public hub area. Trying to remember what else I want to talk about. I haven't. So the big thing is I didn't really flesh out the augment affix system. I didn't have time to do that. I didn't want to deal with it because the thing about the augments and affix system is that you would want to actually farm. Obviously, farming and augmenting affixing are two different things. I augment to affix is the action and you trying to finalize something, but the farming aspect is going to be heavy, and it's going to be something that I'm going to be doing a lot of. Because once again, my rule of thumb is just try to grind and farm for everything. And the thing about you doing a lot of stuff in PSO2 is that you'll be able to just save a good chunk of these resources so you can use it for later, better items. Because the trade-off that they did for the augmented affix system, it looks straightforward, it's easy. And I mean, it still follows the same format and stuff that you know about those stuff in regular PSO2. The only thing they decided to take out was RNG. But at the same time, they don't have a lot of stuff that allows you to get to 100%. Some abilities obviously can be at 100% if you stack it, but these are basic abilities. And the question is, do you really want a basic ability or do you want an ability with a bunch of perks? And the stuff in PSO2, a lot of them that translates into NGS, especially some of the endgame ones, they give a lot more than what the base stuff is going for. And I'll most likely make a separate video addressing that, but hey, it is what it is. But I didn't really flesh it out as much. I think the big thing that caught my attention was just toying around with the weapon, the multi-weapon stuff. I really want to toy around with it. And over here, you can see what I'm talking about with like wall jumping. You had to actually find a placement so you can actually do a continuous sort of jump. If you don't, then you get a bump into some problems. But yeah, let me go into some of my other thoughts. The big one that I'm kind of worried about is how money heavy is this going to be. Now, I don't feel like they're going to be too technical. Like, they're not going to be trying to milk money or sell a bunch of items that you can easily farm in-game. Maybe they will, because there have been a few packages like that, especially in regular PSO2. But the big thing I'm worried about is how many of these different animations do you have to pay for? And how many of them can you actually get through the player shop? Or is it even possible to get these through the player shop? Because if the game starts to get a bit too greedy, I'm gonna most likely say something. Because the one thing that I don't like about any game is if it becomes too money hungry. But that's just me, especially if I really care. And I mean, don't get me wrong. Obviously, yeah, you want to support a game by buying some of its products, but how much are they gonna start? Like what ways are they gonna try to do certain things, and how fair is that? And well, that's another problem too, because everything is fucking subjective. This is opinionated and anyone can say otherwise and label some of the stuff that I'm saying in a different way. So it's not like a universal sort of thing. But that's the one thing that I'm kind of worried about. What else? I don't want to see a lot of the same repetitive stuff. I want to see different things. Obviously, this is open world, but it still has a lot of the core things that I'm very familiar with. I want to see something utterly new, something different. I don't want to see rooms again if they're not going to go for rooms. I want to see a housing system. Hell, if they want to put a marriage system, go ahead. If they add mounts into the game, AISs, it would be nice to see something new. I don't... Like, yes, they're adding a lot of old stuff. Obviously, they're adding Bouncer, Braver, Summoner again. But I want to see a bunch of revisions. I want to see a bunch of new things that aren't really, you know, from PSO2. Because if they can make this new Genesis, it's got to be new. Obviously, it's a smart move for them to keep it in the realms where returning players can be comfortable and be like, oh shit. Like, it's still playing off of the stuff that I'm familiar with in PSO2. So, like, my time playing PSO2 is kicking in right now when I'm playing New Genesis. So I'm trying to think of all the other things I want to address, but I'm running out of it. But anyways, I had fun with the beta. I might have a couple of gripes here and there. That's the one thing that I'm kind of worried about. And once again, when it comes to just like playing a game, just have fun with it, play with friends. Yes, it can be very annoying to do the grind, but hey, look, it's an MMORPG. And not only that, it's like, get used to it if you play an MMORPG. I feel like what's going to happen with NGS is that it's going to do a lot of the things that I used to do for in terms of the pacing and in terms of the release, terms of what they could do, it's going to be familiar to a lot of old players, especially those who played in the past in episode 1, 2, and 3 of Japanese PSO2 or even Southeast Asia, because the pacing isn't going to be as fast. If it is fast, then I'll be surprised, but it's going to be you leveling up again. You're going to be unlocking a lot of these things again, especially if they don't rely heavily on the account locking stuff. Everyone's learning stuff again. There's a lot of combinations again. It's going to just be a familiar setting to a good chunk of vets, because it's like, it's the stuff that if you missed it out on it, then it's like you're going to be re-experiencing some of the stuff that base PSO2 had, where people experimented, did a lot of things. There's going to be a lot more videos, a lot more competition, a lot more guides and all that. Just note that I'm not going to be doing as many. I'll most likely touch on augments and affixes, because apparently a lot of people expect me to do that. I will most likely see how thorough I can be and see all these pros and cons to it. Most likely talk about a lot more with the markets, do a lot more other things, but I'm looking forward to it. Despite all some of these feelings that I have and gripes that I have, I'm looking forward to NGS. I'm hoping to play with my old pals that haven't played PSO2 in a long time. Hoping to see some new old faces. But yeah, that is it for this video. So, someone might ask me as well, what class am I planning to play? Fighter and Gunner. Actually, I'll be playing a lot of classes I didn't really play around with in the past. Which is pretty much a lot of the old classes. So, Ranger was one that I didn't really play a lot on. Hunter, not as much. I did play it recently, but not as much. Fighter, I did play it back in episode 3, but I might want to do it again over here. Gunner, I definitely dropped that after like episode 3 because I know I was shit. But yeah, Gunner's gave you another one. Tekker, I might do that. Force is like something I did play a lot with, and then I did move on to using Phantom, but I'll most likely skip over Force for now. Force was actually pretty easy when I was like toying around with all the classes and there's certain weapons that they had for the NGS beta. What else? But yeah, I feel like I'll be playing around with a lot more classes. But anyways, that is it for this video. I am looking forward to NGS. If you have any question, comment, concerns, want to put your 2 cents about something that I addressed in this video, go ahead. But thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.